Okay, it is time for a Slaanesh roster reveal. I know this is a pretty early one, so we're going to be ripping through this. It's early for me, so let's just keep going into this. What we're going to be doing here today is showing off the entire roster of Slaanesh. Finally, talk about those legendary lords, that hero, well, the legendary lord, the heroes, so on and so forth. We'll be just pretty much going through the entire blog post here. I have it in Word format. As it is not up just yet at the recording of this, but it will be live soon. And you guys can see that. I'll link that in the description and in the pinned comment. And as always, guys, if you have not yet pre-ordered Total War Warhammer 3, you can do so using the Nexus link in my description and pinned comment. And if you do end up enjoying the video, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. Let's get started here on the Slaanesh roster reveal. And we'll start by talking about three big mechanics that will come up with the in the campaign map for Slaanesh here, and also their armies gain battle currency by killing routing units, which can then be used on three abilities which accentuate their playstyle: Fascination, Narcissism, and Sweet Sorrow. So the three campaign map abilities here are Gifts of Slaanesh. Lords and heroes of Slaanesh can impart gifts on enemy characters by defeating them in battle or through hero actions, thus imposing a bundle of negative effects on the unit. I love that that's called a gift. Seduction. Prior to the battle, Slaaneshi armies can seduce one or more enemy unit into switching sides for the battle duration. That is so goddamn awesome, and it is so strong if you take a look at some of the more powerful units, especially when you take a look at maybe the high elves and so on and so forth, and taking a maybe Regiment Renown from them and converting it for the duration of the fight. That's so good. And devotees. Slaaneshi armies can capture devotees from battles, from chaos cults, and from dark acts. Devotees are used for creating cults, the raising of discipline or disciple armies, and to create vassals. So that is a great amount of little campaign mechanics there for Slaanesh. Can't wait to get more info on them. But let's go into the legendary Lord Man himself, the Catwalk King with Inkari. So we see the actual representation of him as a concept sketch. We've seen him in the game already. But on the battlefield, he is an extremely fast and vicious legendary lord that excels at hunting isolated enemy characters and units. His unique passive ability, Harvester of Souls, heals him whenever an enemy unit has been destroyed nearby, whilst his Willing Prey ability significantly reduces enemy melee defense and attack, leaving them vulnerable to a quick and agonizing death. So Inkari sounds very strong. And you know what? It's weird to say that he sounds stronger than Khorne. Well, not Khorne himself, obviously. And I keep wanting to say Kabanda, but that is not it. And my brain is just all over the place right now. But either way, when it comes to Inkari, like the passive ability to heal and also reduce melee defense and attack is a really, really good thing. We've always kind of talked about it from the competitive standpoint of Total War Warhammer and how any kind of regenerative capability is very strong in the game. And it's no different than in campaign, right? So having the ability to passively regenerate health is going to be very, very cool. It does say whenever an enemy unit has been destroyed. So I assume it's completely wiped rather than just saying routing or broken or, just losing units. I think it has to be completely removed. And it gets me to wonder too if a summoned unit, because a summoned unit, when it dies, it's considered destroyed. It says like, oh, we've lost a unit, and it's just one of your summoned units dissipating. So I wonder if that'll actually factor into that as well. It'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays into the actual game. But it's okay. Harvesters of Souls here. Inkari's health regenerates when enemy units have been destroyed nearby, and this stacks when multiplied. Inkari blesses the enemy unit with a generous debuff of their melee attack and melee defense as an active ability with Willing Prey. And then Wit Stealer Sword is pretty brutal here. This ability significantly improves Inkari's base weapon damage and armor-piercing weapon damage, empowering him to take on anyone. So that is glorious. It's nice too because Inkari never had an actual representation in the tabletop in the 8th edition Chaos Demons book. So it's cool to see him get this full-fledged blowout here because he is so integral to the lore of Slaanesh and to the lore of Tyrion and Teclis and the High Elves as a whole. So it's cool to see this character actually enter into the fray and have some very cool little custom abilities. Moving into the Lord section here, we have the Exalted Keeper of Secrets here. I'm sorry for the jankety process of looking at this, but this is probably the easiest way to convey the information here. But again, we have the Exalted Keeper of Secrets. This is straight out of the Age of Sigmar's Keeper of Secrets, which is quite fine with me because the old Keeper of Secrets was really terrible looking. But we get these spells from the Lore of Slaanesh, which we already know. We've gone through these before, but Lash of Slaanesh, Hysterical Frenzy, Slicing Shards, Acquiescence, Pavane of Slaanesh, and Phantasmagoria are the 6 spells of Slaanesh here. And he, Slaanesh, will have access to the Lore of Shadows as well. Note, all exalted lords from the demonic ranks cannot be directly recruited in campaign. Instead, their herald counterparts must gain sufficient experience before being presented with the opportunity of converting into their deadly counterparts. I love that. I love that it is very thematic and it is very juicy there, right? It's not just simply like, oh yeah, go ahead and recruit this. And when we take a look over here, we see the Herald of Slaanesh. Now keep in mind, this says all exalted lords from the demonic ranks, not the exalted lords of Slaanesh for the Slaanesh roster. It's saying every single exalted, this if I'm understanding this properly, right? Every single exalted greater demon can only become one as a result of a leveled up Herald of Slaanesh, which has got a very cool progression to it. You can get the normal one just from a rare choice, and you'll have to do whatever is required to recruit them into your army. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of pretense that is going to be established there first, but you can have the non-exalted versions in your army, of course. Now for the Herald of Slaanesh here, we're going to have some interesting capabilities here. So although proficient in the use of either the Lore of Shadows or Slaanesh, the Herald has access to one of 3 Locus abilities to further enhance their support capabilities. Grace, a ward save that greatly improves melee defense and physical resistance. Swiftness, an augment which greatly improves charge bonus, speed and charge speed. Or Beguilement, a hex which reduces leadership and melee defense. Then the mounts are Steed of Slaanesh, Seeker Chariot, and then Exalted Seeker Chariot, which should be pretty cool here, right? Getting that exalted lawnmower of Slaanesh just kind of mowing through things. Dwarfs don't stand a chance. Notable passive abilities, Devastating Flanker. So obviously these units are going to have some sort of destructive capability when flanking, and we already see this represented in Total War Troy, Saga, Brad Pitt's Troy. And that's cool because we're going to start seeing obviously more mechanics making their way over from Troy. And I've beaten off this horse on a bush plenty of times, whatever the saying is, that so much stuff is probably coming from Troy into Warhammer 3, and there's another piece of evidence right there, right? Devastating Flanker coming in because flanking is a huge part of Troy's battle mechanics. So cool to see that here with the Herald. Now moving into our Alluress, we're going to get our Caster character, which is also very similar looking to the Herald of Slaanesh, just goes to a different salon, but for the most part looks pretty much the same. Now this is, and again, another demonette here with access to the Lore of Shadows and Slaanesh, alongside access to the same Locus abilities that further enhance their support capabilities. So Steed of Slaanesh, Seeker Chariot, Exalted Seeker Chariot, and then Devastating Flanker. So I wonder, and maybe I've not read something here and I missed it, but I don't know the duh. I'm like, what's the fucking difference? These are the Herald of Slaanesh is a lord. All the heralds are lords. I've totally forgotten that. Sorry, guys. And then the Alluress is a hero. So that makes more sense. I think it was the formatting here completely threw me off. Now, jumping into the Cultists of Slaanesh, we saw the purple jumpsuits that were evident in the trailer. So we now see them coming as the actual cultist. Something that I thought at one point was the Alluress. It is clearly, obviously, the cultist here. And they can be used for clandestine operations throughout enemy and allied settlements where they can establish one of 4 Slaaneshi cults. A salon is the first one, and I didn't read that before making that joke earlier. An atelier, I think it was called, a parlor, and then a den, each providing a variety of dark boons to your campaign strategies. So other characteristics has access to several abilities to further enhance her battlefield prowess, including Torment Blade, Pendant of Slaanesh, Deadly Onslaught, and Gate of Slaanesh. I assume Gate of Slaanesh is some sort of summon capability. And I think that's what they said is how you get access to just the non-exalteds is summoning through the cultist, I believe it was. Mount, we have the Chaos Steed, and then notable passive abilities, Devastating Flanker yet again. So those are our lords and heroes for Slaanesh. Let's take a little pivot here and talk about some Cav and Chariot options. Starting with the Seekers of Slaanesh and the Heat Seekers, Heart Seekers of Slaanesh, we have our mounted units, right? So the Seekers of Slaanesh are the Outriders of Slaanesh demonic hosts, commanded by masterful demonettes. So, and then the elite squadron of Slaanesh's demonic shock cav are led by demonette officers known as Heart Seekers. Armed with a unique Soul Scent passive ability, which provides significant increase to armor piercing and melee attack capability. It activates when the Heart Seekers come within the range of an enemy unit with morale wavering or low. So it's really cool to see how a lot of these mechanics are layering on top of themselves when you look at all and each one of the demons, right? How each one of them can increase or trigger their battlefield use or their battlefield abilities, like say Khorne is just killing people, Nurgle is taking damage, Tzeentch is using Winds of Magic. So it's cool to see how this makes these very flavorful, really cool, really unique demon factions that are not just simply, yeah, these ones have fat stomachs, this one belches fire, those dudes have horns, and these ones tweak their nipples with hooked up to a car battery. So I love that there is a unique flavor to this that is not just simply passive abilities that are, yeah, all these are fast, or all these are going to have a passive ward save or something like that to represent dodge. So the more I look at the demon armies, the more I am really siding with them as possibly the first one to play when I jump onto Warhammer 3 finally. I mean, Cathay and Kislev were the ones I was most excited about, but now they're just so damn cool. The demons are so sick. So we're going to be getting poison attacks, which are going to be quite nice for these units here as well, and notable passive ability, devastating flanker, and then vanguard deployment, which should be quite nice to see how these are. Also, getting a look at their stat profile is going to be pretty nice. I know we saw this in a number of fights. I think in the Nurgle one, we were able to take a look at it, but I can't remember offhand what their stats were. I recall them being quite quick from what I can remember. But now we have the Hellstriders of Slaanesh with spears and Hell Scourges. Taking a look at these guys here. So the Hellstriders are vainglorious mortals granted the immortal power they crave at the cost of everything they once were here. That's interesting. Oh, early tier cab unit. Okay. I thought they were saying that this is the infantry unit because I saw these guys on foot. I was like, this doesn't make much sense. So they ride the demonic steeds of Slaanesh into war. Indeed, they have no choice, for once they climb into the saddle, they can never dismount, which is something that I think a lot happens to a lot of people when they get married. But other characteristics available in two variants: Spear and the Hell Scourges, these whips here. They inflict poisonous attacks upon the enemy, and Slaanesh's only shielded cav option. So clearly the previous ones do not have that. And the notable passive abilities, Vanguard deployment. Now for our other cav, or chariot for that matter, we have the Exalted Seeker Chariot, the Lawnmower of Slaanesh, and the normal Seeker Chariot. You can tell obviously what denotes the two are the sheer number of blades on this thing, right? So a single entity unit designed to crush into enemy lines, inflicts poisonous attacks once more, and devastating flanker and perfect vigor, which is quite nice there, right? So I wonder if it's just simply going to be an increased damage profile on the Exalted versus the standard Seeker Chariot. But you can see that the Lawnmowers of Slaanesh are definitely going to be holding down the line. And I wonder too if it'll have a wider profile on the map, being able to hit things at a different angle, or wider angle at least. Then here for the Seeker Chariot, inflict poison, low model count, but also able to smash into the enemy ranks and hold its own in combat, of course, too, which is nice. So it'll be interesting to see what it means by hold its own in combat, because typically we don't get a very perpetual combat variant of Chariot. So I'd love to see how that works. Now with Hellflare, the Hellflare of Slaanesh are brutal, barbed creations that only the most wicked minds could have created. The Chariot is adorned with reaping blades, which slice Slaanesh's foes into delicate morsels, their suffering driving its rider into a rapturous frenzy. So to become a Hellflare is to be punished by Slaanesh himself. For those unfortunate enough to command these mighty machines must spend a millennia serving the bloody harvest within the gardens of Slaanesh, ever feeding the otherworldly fauna that adorns his realm. So again, poison attacks. Again, we get devastating flanker, but we get Soul Scent this time. And remember what Soul Scent was. Let's jump back up real quick to take a look at that. It provides a passive ability which significantly increases armor piercing and melee attack. So it seems to be 3-tier of Chariot with a lot of cav options too, right? We get your base low tier cav, then your quote unquote shock cav, which I mean, I don't imagine they'll have very heavy armor because they're just demonettes riding it. And then hopefully in the future, some sort of Slaanesh Chaos Knights, I mean, obviously they're not in this roster, but maybe they'll be in some sort of undivided, revised, Chaos revised roster in the future of some sort. But that covers all of our chariots and all of our cav. Let's move into some infantry. We'll start off with the Chaos Furies, which I wouldn't really think of as infantry. I would think of as flying units, but whatever. Of course, they're going to be just simply Furies, but they're Furies that are going to have access to devastating flanker and can do Vanguard deployment. Interesting too that they don't have, like, say, what is it called? Poison or anything of the sort, like so many other things have had so far. I guess you could make the argument here that, well, that's kind of Nurgle's shtick with his Chaos Furies, and if the Slaanesh ones have it, then what makes the other ones unique at all? So moving down here, we have the Marauders of Slaanesh, which we've already seen, but they've got spears, swords, and hell scourges. Remember, those are the really cool whips, but they've got the 3 different variants, which is quite nice. They're the only shielded frontline troop, and they're immune to psychology, which is pretty cool here for a Marauder, right? They typically suffer from having very poor leadership and fleeing quite quick. So it's nice to see them having that full kind of regalia of different options between spear, swords, and hell scourges, and then having immune to psych. Now with our Demonettes of Slaanesh, we get the bad bitches of the group here. Now, for the most part, they are not going to be anything crazy, but so Demonettes are the hypnotic, dancing foot soldiers of Slaanesh, beguiling senses before shredding flesh with knife-edged claws, and are euphoric in the gift of pain. Although lacking almost any armor, they complement the Marauders of Slaanesh as an early troop choice through their superior speed, melee output, and access to the devastating flanker passive ability that grants double charge bonus when attacking the rear or flank of an entity. So now we know how that actually plays itself out. It is a double charge bonus on the rear or flank. And I wonder too if they will have immune to psych and it's just not present here. Like that's like the thing for demons. Maybe that's up here and I just didn't read it or something. But because you know how we know with Nurgle, hey, all Nurgle gets their Cloak of Flies and so on and so forth. Or hey, everyone with the Mark of Tzeentch gets the barrier. So it seems to be that everything gets devastating flanker, but it's interesting that immune to psych is on these Marauders, and I didn't know if that is also a trait of it. Then we get exalted Demonettes of Slaanesh, who just look way angrier. Holy shit. Definitely look like seasonal workers at a Macy's, just looking pissed off. But they get Soul Scent as well, which, as you guys know, is going to increase their damage profile and more proficient in battle in every way compared to average Demonettes. So let's move now here into our Slaanesh monsters and beasts. So looking here at the monsters and beasts, the first one is going to just be your generic Keeper of Secrets, not even the Exalted, but still a very cool looking character nonetheless, pulling directly from that Age of Sigmar model. Not as big of a headdress, plume, hair, whatever the hell it is anyway. Definitely not a dancer at the Flamingo in Las Vegas, but has access to spells from the lore of Slaanesh, Lash of Slaanesh, and Acquiescence, of course. So those look to be bound abilities is what I think it's saying right there. Also, an unparalleled mix of speed and weapon strength make it capable of taking down almost any foe, and notable passive abilities, Devastating Flanker yet once more, Blissful Rapture, and then Strider. So that's quite interesting that it's also going to be getting Strider to move across that battlefield quickly, not impeded by any difficult terrain, quote unquote. Now, here's the big daddies, right? The Fiends of Slaanesh. We've already seen how some of their animations look, and they look great. They look like they're going to have some of the coolest animations, very akin to the line disrupting effect of a Tomb Scorpion, right? Tomb Scorpion just whip about and destroy everything. So it's going to be exciting to see how these Fiends of Slaanesh kind of come into the game. When attacking, they emit a sulfuric musk, which lowers enemy melee defense and melee attack. Their extreme speed and deadly flanker passive ability make them an ideal choice for hit and run tactics and notable passive abilities. Again, guess what? It's Devastating Flanker. Now, our last unit to talk about is none other than the Soul Grinder of Slaanesh. Also, there's a Spawn of Slaanesh, but that's kind of to be expected. So, Soul Grinder, as we all know it to be. So it definitely seems like the Nurgle and the Tzeentch one is a ranged one, and the Slaanesh and Khorne one are melee ones. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I think it kind of plays into it. They all seem to have melee capabilities, of course, but Tzeentch, of course, had the ability to like throw lightning spears like Thor, like they are like Zeus. I think it was awesome. Now, for Slaanesh, though, a truly horrific amalgamation of metal and flesh that causes terror, can fire its extremely powerful weaponry while on the move and charging the enemy. Okay, so it does have a ranged attack, it looks like. I didn't know if it actually had it on the back of its gauntlet or anything like that. Highly resistant to physical harm and tremendously hard to kill, armed with huge razor-sharp claws that inflict great armor-piercing damage. So, similar profile that we would come to expect. I wonder if there's going to also have devastating charge. It didn't mention that here, but I wonder if there's going to be some sort of presence as to makes it Slaanesh-y. When we saw the trailer, it was moving, right? It definitely had a fast speed from just seeing what we saw in that trailer. So hopefully we'll see the actual profile of the grinder, and it will show us that he has some sort of significantly high movement characteristic or speed characteristic. Then lastly, we have our Spawn of Slaanesh. A low model count and lack of defense make this tricky unit to hold the line, but their powerful blows and pure ferocity make them a useful part of Slaanesh's roster, particularly as a rampaging decoy before a devastating cav charge. So that is the roster here for Slaanesh, guys. Go ahead and let me know in the comment section below which Chaos Demon faction you're most hyped about, you know? Do you want to jump onto the nipple train of Slaanesh? Are you ready to get down and dirty with Grandfather Nurgle? Are you just want to jump over some old tomes of Tzeentch, or just rock some skulls with Khorne? I really want to know what you guys are thinking about this. And tell me too, if you feel the same way I do about having been excited about the quote-unquote factions of order in Cathay and Kislev, and now looking at these going, well, I don't want to play those as much as these ones now. And I think that Slaanesh will be interesting because there's no ranged units here. I mean, you can make the argument that it definitely seems like, I don't really think that, I didn't see the Soul Grinder doing anything in that one trailer, right? In the Enter the World of Slaanesh, so I don't, maybe they're just talking about it can attack on the move. That might be it. But it seems that outside of that, the only ranged capabilities you're going to have are stuff like Lash of Slaanesh. It's just going to be probably a ranged damage ability of some sort if we're looking at the 8th edition Chaos Demon spells here. And we've already seen all of the spells listed before in that lore video some time ago, so it's going to be interesting to see that it doesn't have any range capability. So that'll be something that to kind of be mindful of when you are playing as Slaanesh. But it does seem that having the ability to overwhelm your opponent's flank and rear is going to be so much more devastating now, because you can use Furies and stuff like that to even more effect because of devastating charge. You'll be able to wipe out the enemy's range attacks quicker to kind of balance out the fact that you don't have access to range anymore. So very, very, very awesome to see all this. Again, guys, let me know in the comment section how you're feeling about Slaanesh. But as always, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.